In this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a social media game day post using Adobe Photoshop. Now, a game day post is simply an image that sporting teams will put up onto their social media pages on the day of a game. And it will just give off basic information such as the location of the event, the time it's going to kick off. It'll often have some sponsor logos on there as well, and a picture of some of the players looking like they mean business. So it hopefully pumps the fans up a little bit before the game. So this is an example of a Brisbane Broncos one. There's plenty of sports that do this. You can see the AFL does it as well. We've also got some cricket. We have the netball, got the basketball, and finally, this is the Brisbane Broncos one again. It's just a different one, and we're going to be taking inspiration from this one for our design today. It's not going to look exactly the same, but we will be using a similar kind of layout and colors in our design. Alrighty, so to get started on this tutorial, what we're going to need to do first of all is make sure we've got all these pictures in our account somewhere. If you're in my class, I'm going to give you access to them, but if you're watching on YouTube, then I will put the links in the video description below. Some things to be aware of: you will have a font that you need to install on your computer called Sport Viper. So just double click on it and press install. Should take a couple of seconds to install, and that way you'll be able to access that cool font for your little post today. Another thing to be aware of, we will be using this photo of Reece Walsh and Adam Reynolds to actually cut them out from that image and put them into our social media post. Okay, the rest of them are all pretty much just little logos and a picture of Suncorp there that we will drag in one by one eventually. Okay, so let's get started by jumping into Photoshop and making ourselves a new file. Down the right hand side here, I'm going to get you to make sure you're in pixels. And the size we're going to do is 1080 by 1080 pixels. So it's going to be a perfect square shape. Because this image is just going online, we'll leave the resolution at 72 pixels per inch. And we'll leave the color mode as RGB. And we will click on Create. Alright, so you now have an empty canvas on the screen ready for you to create your social media post. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our background in. Now the background is a picture of a Suncorp Stadium. Here it is, just here. So we're going to need to get that into Photoshop. There's a few ways you can get these images into Photoshop, but I find the easiest way is just pick it up, drag it over to Photoshop and drop it in. Another way to do it is just go to the File menu and you can choose Place Embedded, and that will embed the image into your design. But because I've dragged it in, I'm just going to go with that. And before I accept the changes, I'm just going to hold Alt on my keyboard and drag out one of the corners until it fills the entire page, and press the tick at the top. And that should perfectly fit Suncorp Stadium in your frame with the city in the background. I think it's a nice backdrop. Now it's a very busy image, so we're going to put a color over the top of it. And that will make it look, I guess, a little bit more subtle. And we can put our important information over the top of it that way and still make it readable. Okay, so what we're going to do next is get the Broncos logo over here, the colored one, and we're going to drop it into Photoshop. The reason we're putting it in now is because I want to use this maroony kind of color in the backdrop. So I'll just make that smaller and stick it in the corner for now. And then we're going to grab our rectangle tool from our toolbox. You can press the letter U for the shortcut, or you can just go down the bottom and select the rectangle tool. Now the color we want is that color from the little Bronco here. So up the top where it says fill color, click on it. And actually, no, we won't do it that way. We'll use the eyedropper tool, sorry. So the eyedropper tool is here on the left-hand side of the page. Click on that and go and click on your Bronco, and that will select that maroon color. Okay, so now when you go back to your rectangle tool and pick it up, you can see that maroon color is your fill color. Now I want to just slightly change it. Okay, so I'm going to draw it on first of all, just going from the left-hand corner down to the bottom right corner, just going outside the lines. And then in the properties over on the right-hand side where it says fill, just double click on that. Actually, you need to click on it once and go to the little color picker box on the right-hand side here. It's like a little rainbow shape. And just make it a bit more purple. Pull it to the left a little bit and then make it a bit darker. So we're going for a darkish purple look rather than that lighter maroon. Something like that's not too bad. I might go a little bit darker again. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. So a dark kind of purplish maroon color is what we're looking for here. Now, once you put that in, over in your layers panel, we're going to drop the opacity of this rectangle so we can see the Brisbane CBD shining through. And we're just going to drop it a little bit to 90%. Okay, it's not going to be much, but it will be subtle, showing the Brisbane CBD there and Suncorp in the background. All right, now that Brisbane Broncos logo that's still in the background there, it's on this second layer here. If you pull it up to the top, that will bring it above that purpley coloured rectangle, which is what we want, so we can now edit other images and use the colours from that logo. All right, so background's done. I might actually lock this background into place. So click on Suncorp and press the little padlock. That locks it. Same with the purple rectangle. We're not going to touch it anymore, so just lock it into place. In fact, while we're over here, this original white background, you can click on it and press the trash can at the bottom to delete it. We don't need that anymore. All right, so we've got the background in. It's looking good. The next thing we might do is just jazz it up a little bit with a light leak effect. Now let me show you what the light leak effect looks like. This is the end result that we're going for. It's this kind of yellowy effect around the outskirts of the image. Okay, and that's quite easy to do using our brush tool. So first up, go to your eyedropper and select the yellow color from the Broncos logo just by clicking on it. And then we're going to grab our brush tool. Okay, you can press the letter B for the shortcut, but we'll grab that brush tool. And we are going to make sure that the size of our brush is pretty big, around the 500 pixel mark, a little bit over if you want. The hardness, about 50% is good. And up the top here where it says flow, make it about 25%. So when we actually paint onto the screen in just a moment with this brush, it's not going to come out too intense. It's going to be quite faded into the background. So what we'll do next is make a new layer. I'm just going to click up the top here and make a new layer by pressing the plus sign next to the trash can. I'll give it a name. Instead of layer 1, I'll call it light leak. And I think we're good to go. So just click once over on the side of the page there and you'll see what it does. Click once down here. You get that yellow effect. Now I don't want them that big. I'm going to probably keep them more confined to the edges of the page. And if you want, you can click over the top of those to get it darker and darker, or more intense, I guess you could call it. Oh, that's probably a bit too big, so I might scroll down a bit here. Let's put a little bit of yellow at the bottom. Oops, bumped a button there, but that's not too bad. So that's the kind of light leak effect we're going for. If you want to make yours a little bit bigger or smaller, by all means go for it. It's up to you, but that's the kind of effect that I'm looking for. All right, so that's our light leak done. If you want, you can lock that layer as well with your padlock tool. Now, because this is going to be a fairly long tutorial, I'm going to stop the video here. This is the first part of the tutorial done. So we've got the background finished. Next up, we're going to be putting in some sponsor logos and some TV logos as well. So I will see you in the next video shortly.